Hi, my name is Dr. Kelly Barron, and welcome to another episode of the KellFire Show. Today, I am so lucky to have on Dr. Dawn Andalon. She is, and I told her I was going to read her bio because it's extensive. Um, Dr. Dawn is a physical therapist who is highly trained in pelvic floor rehab and a fitness consultant, speaker, author, YouTuber, co-founder of Level 4 PT and Pilates in California. That's a lot alone. That was a lot. um, One might say you're an expert. Dawn also has a passion for women's health care, educating postmenopausal women on how to stay healthy as they age. Thank you, Dawn. We need that. She has also, on top of everything else, authored 3 books and has a top-rated podcast called The Women's Healthy Happy Hour. So, Dawn, again, thank you for coming on today and welcome. Did I miss anything there?
No, that's great.
I can't believe it. Perfect. Um, so we're going to talk pelvic floor health today. And I'd like to sort of just kick it off by asking if you could kind of give us a rundown of what is the pelvic floor?
Yeah, it's like, why should this matter to your audience? The pelvic floor is a very important group of muscles that a lot of times is left out. Even when I was trained to be a physical therapist, we got 2 hour lecture on the pelvic floor, which is crazy. And they do a lot more now, 20 years later. But the pelvic floor muscles are the muscles at the bottom part, think between your legs, that support your pelvis, support your hip bones. So, therefore, it can help with sexual function, helps with bowel and bladder function, and it offers that support and stability for really the bottom part of what makes up your core. And a lot of women are misdiagnosed with other issues when, in regards, it could be a pelvic floor muscle issue that typical general PTs or physical therapists are not trained in. You have to go through a special ongoing continuing education to be a pelvic floor specialist. So it's pretty niche and specialized.
Is it, and forgive, I took anatomy, dissection, all that good stuff, but is it sort of like, I don't want to say hammock, that's a really bad word, but kind of like it has this stretch with the different muscles that make it up, and it's kind of, and nobody ever thinks of their pelvic floor being like that at all. They can't even
Yeah,
imagine.
you can think of it like a hammock. It is like that bottom support. So it should be turned on like as much as necessary, but also as little as possible, supporting your pelvic organs like your bladder, your uterus, your rectum. So it's those muscles at the bottom that are, yeah, you can visualize and think of it like a hammock.
You know, we really want to keep those inside. That it's preferable that they don't pop out or prolapse at any given moment. So, um, when should pelvic floor health be a topic of conversation we should be having with our daughters, our teenagers, or is this just something that we wait till we get into the childbearing years?
No, absolutely. I think now with just more education out there and more platforms like Instagram or YouTube, women are learning a lot more about their bodies, but there's also a lot of crazy information out there. But I
Yeah.
think having these conversations I have 2 teenage daughters, so they know what I do for a living, and being able to have those conversations about what's healthy and not healthy, what's normal and not normal, what should be painful, and like those muscles should not be painful. So, yeah, at every stage in our life, as our hormones change as women, we go through different stages where our pelvic floor muscles can be a source of some issues too. So it's good to be educated about your body.
I think that that's great, because I know growing up, I'm 54, my mom, grandmother, any of the women in your life did not talk. This was not a subject of conversation. So, like I said earlier, you kind of just didn't know you knew what you had, what those few things did, and that's about all you knew. And I honestly wish I had that education and how important it is and pelvic floor health from the get go. but from the moment that children even came into my brain, I should have already been, I feel like training for a sport, keeping that pelvic floor. And I know you train, I forgot that you train a lot of female athletes, or you work with a lot of female athletes. So um, it's good that you can relate to this earlier stage in life. Um, okay, what are some of the common myths that women are told about pelvic floor issues during menopause, and what's the truth?
One of the biggest misconceptions is that incontinence or having leaky bladder issues only happens after you have babies and that it's normal. But that is the biggest misconception, that it is not normal to be leaking and something is off within that system. So there's many women that we have treated that don't have that problem until they hit that menopausal stage, because of hormone fluctuations and changes during perimenopause will affect the vaginal muscles and the pelvic floor strength. And so I think it's a misconception that women think, oh, well, I don't, I never had kids, so why do I have this issue? Or this is something that just happens when you get older. Or I'm in menopause, so my doctor said all this stuff comes up and it's normal. Absolutely not. So, misconceptions about incontinence is a big one, and that you have to take a medication or you just have to wear pads. If you haven't seen a pelvic floor physical therapist and done more of the work on the muscle training, and I'm not just talking about doing Kegel exercises, it's a lot more thorough than that, but there can be a huge relief in just learning more about how your muscles can actually fire differently, and you can build strength at any age, but you're probably just not doing the right thing. And a lot of it's about brain training too. And your gynecologist won't understand this because they're not the musculoskeletal experts. They're great at like diagnosing, major issues going on. But if you're complaining of pain with intercourse, any hip or back pain, or incontinence, or even having pressure, heaviness in the vaginal area that's not related to anything else medical, but could be a prolapse symptoms, that any of those can be helped with the right type of muscle training.
I think that that's probably one of the number one things that I hear outside of hot flashes
Mm-hmm.
is incontinence. I know from an athlete's point of view, and I don't know if this is just something because we basically valsalva or put pressure when we deadlift. So when I compete, um, and it didn't happen till after I had kids, and I just attributed to it. That's all I thought. And so I'd go on the platform and deadlift, and you're like, oh, I just peed. And you were trying to think of like, what are you going to do? And it's embarrassing. But then I started to see the younger girls, they're 20, 21, who are also deadlifting. And also they would, just a little bit of leakage when all that pressure was put down there. So I started to realize it's not a childbearing issue. And I don't know, like you said, it's not normal. And I don't even know if there is a normal situation for that, or if you classify that as something about putting your body under an abnormal situation. But that's when I started thinking like pelvic floor health really needs to start early, real early. If
Mm-hmm.
nothing else, to understand what's going on and
Mm-hmm.
what you can do. And like you said, mindset is a big one. I truly believe mindset. So many women that are in my age, so in the perimenopause to menopause age group, they won't jump rope anymore. They won't box jump. They won't. There's so many different things they won't do because of urinary incontinence, and they just go, "Oh, well, it's a fact of life. There's nothing I can do about it."
Yeah, not true. Not true. Seeing a pelvic floor physical therapist, and I would say 9 times out of 10, your doctor won't even refer you to one because um, they don't really understand how that all works. But the pelvic floor specialists, like our realm, you can go directly to one. You don't have to be referred. And it's my job just to get more of that info out there, because in weightlifting, yes, very common. And I've seen this a lot working with people that do powerlifting, and not necessarily ones that have had kids either. But when you're bearing down and using the Valsalva maneuver and putting a lot of pressure through your abdominal wall and through your pelvic floor muscles, then therefore it's like your bladder's going to do the opposite. It's going to let go rather than learning how to control it. So it's just learning the right strategies to use and train those muscles to work the right way.
That's huge, because but on the platform, all I ever heard was, oh, this is what happens when you're female and you're, and it doesn't even have to be, I'm over here in the masters division lifting half of what the 20-year-olds are. So it's not really like, oh, it's just because if they have 400 pounds on the bar. I agree with you. I think there's got to be a strategy that when you know the anatomy, like you just said, made so much sense. When you were like, the bladder's got to do the opposite. As soon as you said that, a light bulb went on in my head, and I was like, oh, she's so right. So I really have to like get it in my brain how this all works to control it better. And then, so I do agree with you. The word needs to get out. Women need to start seeking healthcare providers such as yourself that aren't referred, that they don't go to their OBGYN or their GP and just ask, hey, this is what I'm feeling. What do you suggest? They're not going to refer you out. This is not within their realm. So I encourage women to go out and seek professionals like yourself. Like, take care of yourself. Put yourself first. Find the help that you need. If you're not going to find it here, go ask somebody. Go find out. So I'm glad that you're getting it out there. I'm glad you have the books, the podcast. That's amazing. So women don't have to feel ashamed or scared to ask those questions.
Yeah,
But
there's no questions that we haven't heard. So some women think like,
I can
oh my
imagine.
gosh, should I ask this? And I was like, I promise you, like nothing is off limits. You can tell us anything.
I think it's important that you give that too, that you have a very welcoming, warm personality. So I think that, when you get in there and women can speak to someone like you and you're telling them it's okay, don't worry about it, we've heard it all, and it puts them at ease, that's amazing. And that's something that we don't often get out of our healthcare provider. So kudos to you for making us all feel like we can share our dirty little secrets we think we have. But what does exactly a pelvic floor physical therapist do? Because I know there's a lot of information out there. People have all sorts of ideas of what goes on. And why might I choose to see one? I think we kind of covered that already, but you let me know.
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, having back pain or pelvic pain, hip pain, anything that maybe you saw a general physical therapist and it's still not getting better. There's multiple issues, even like a high hamstring strain, things that can mimic other orthopedic problems that could be related to your pelvic floor. Having pressure or heaviness in the lower abdominal area, lower back, or the vaginal area could mean a prolapse. So there's ways that we can help ease the symptoms of those and find a more holistic realm instead of getting surgery. And then bladder and bowel incontinence issues. You're leaking, you can't make it to the bathroom in time, you're embarrassed. Postpartum or perimenopause to menopause, it's important. We have women that sometimes just do like a check-in visit. Am I doing things correctly? I want to lift weights more, but I'm worried that I could be making a problem worse, or I want to set myself up for success. Maybe they saw their mother go through having to wear diapers into their 70s, 80s, 90s, and they don't want to turn out like that. So there's a lot of preventative things, but then also those red flag things that I mentioned too. Having pain during intercourse also is not normal. So that most likely is related to the muscles and being able to get those muscles to relax and release and respond better. So those are all symptoms that we would help with. When you come see a specialized physical therapist trained in pelvic floor, and you should be recommended to have an internal assessment. We are trained to do an internal assessment through the vaginal area, and it's not as invasive as going to the gynecologist. Sounds scary, but you will have your muscles tested. So, can they contract? Can they relax? What happens when you're breathing? What happens when you bear down? Going over like normal bowel and bladder habits. If you have symptoms of a prolapse, sometimes we'll even check in standing those muscles and see what they're doing wrong, because you'll get a lot of pressure under the gravity position. And so going through that full assessment, we look at your hips, we look at your core, you look at your back. Really, we have more of a whole body approach, so we're seeing how everything moves together and what could, fast track to get those symptoms better for you.
I think it makes perfect sense. I know there's probably a lot of women that are, we're not worried about the OBGYN getting up in there with the speculum, but when they think pelvic floor specialist or therapist, oh, I don't know, that seems weird. But if they sat back and thought, well, if there's a tear in your bicep or whatever you have to test the muscle, or just for general weakness. You do muscle tests all the time, legs, arms, core. Why would it be any different? Yes, it's not, it's not on the outside and it's not as easy to pull off, but why would it be any different if you were working with me on my pelvic floor, which is made of muscles? Why wouldn't you need to assess it? And if the only way to assess it is internal, then you got to test the muscles.
Absolutely.
If we start getting away from that taboo feeling about our bodies, I think it just comes from just being uneducated, and it's just not widely talked about. But if you talk about it in that sense of an assessment, it makes perfect sense. And there was such a host of symptoms that you just like laid out there for us that, I mean, there's so much that could happen and could be attributed to it that, yeah, why wouldn't you do it? You would absolutely want to do it. It could change your life. Imagine if it could change, if sex got better, or urinary incontinence got better, just by simply going in and speaking with someone who's very much a specialist in that area.
Yeah, and the other part I didn't mention too, it's like after surgeries, so like abdominal surgeries. We see
Oh
this a
yeah.
lot after a hysterectomy or a C-section, when you may not realize till later, like you're having trouble really working on abdominal exercises at the gym, or you start getting pain, or you start getting just difficulty with your daily life, or more pelvic pain, because you could have some scar tissue around there too, when we have strategies to help that as well, with massage techniques and ways that we can teach you how to help break up scar tissue after surgeries too.
That's really important. I hear that a lot. I've heard women who just, they're like, oh, C-section or any kind, like you said, any kind of abdominal surgery, and they're like, and they accept it. They
Mm-hmm.
just say, oh well, that's what happened. I have to deal with this for the rest of my life, or find medication. But how important, because I was talking to a woman recently, and we started talking about core, just we generally know about training the core, abdominals and your back, but it's all really related, isn't it, to the pelvic floor? If you have a strong core, can you get a better handle on your pelvic floor?
Yeah, and I think it's just how we define a strong core. If you're doing tons of ab exercises, but your ab muscles are so toned, and you're overworking them, that in turn sometimes can cause pelvic floor pain or discomfort. We just saw actually a 27-year-old woman the other day, one of my therapists, and she was in tears because she's having pain with sex and can't be intimate with a partner, and it keeps coming back every time she does. Well, sure enough, her abdominal wall was so tight with her muscles, because she does a lot of core work, a lot of Pilates, like a lot of work that is affecting those muscles. And so it's just like muscle imbalances. So you want to have good expansion and good ability to lengthen the muscles, but then have that recoil and strength as well. So sometimes you think of a strong core as like having the six pack, having the
Right.
abs. but that doesn't necessarily mean it's functionally strong. So having a good balance between your diaphragm muscles at the top, your deep abdominals, your lower back muscles that connect to your spine, and then the pelvic floor at the bottom. They all need to work together like a system. So if one of those muscles is overactivating or underactivating, then you will develop some symptoms too. So we use Pilates training a lot in our in-person clients that we see. So using Pilates in the right way with breath work and alignment, you're really going to learn how to activate and release all the muscles really well together if you're doing it the right way.
Well, which this opens up the question that we're all taught, but I want to know from the expert, do Kegels really help?
So that's kind of a interesting question, because for some women, yes, some women, no. I think it's more common that women during, I would say, the perimenopause to menopause stage may have some weakness there, but they may also be overactivating those muscles in a way. When you overactivate a muscle, it shortens it. And therefore, you can't get enough strength in the muscle because it stays in that shortened position. So we have to learn both ways on how to release and lengthen the muscle, and then how to contract. And sometimes if you are doing Kegel exercise and you're doing them for 10 days, 14 days, or even longer and longer, and your symptoms aren't improving, that's where you are either not doing them correctly, or you don't need to be doing them because you have tight and restricted muscles. So I would say it depends on the person. But as a general rule, if you're just clenching and squeezing those muscles, you're really leaving out how, like I mentioned, the whole core system works. You're just working one part of it.
Oh, kind of, this is good news though, because we're all at the stoplight and we're like, all right, we're gonna get 50 Kegels in right now, and I'm going to be amazing down there.
I would
I'm really
say,
happy to hear
yeah,
that.
real quick, a better way to think of it is like working it into your workout routine or into your daily life. So if you're getting up from a chair, like on your standing up, then think of drawing in those muscles and pulling them in and up with your lower belly muscles at the same time, but you're not holding your breath. And so doing it with a squat on the way up when you're standing, that's how they're going to work functionally with those muscles, instead of just sitting in the car and squeezing and trying to tighten your vaginal muscles all the time.
For anybody that's just listening on Spotify or Apple, I was literally just sitting in my chair as you're saying it, and I'm like, okay, and we're down, and we're up. I feel it. You're right. I'm breathing. It works. Are there? I guess urinary incontinence just keeps coming back because one of my favorite things to talk about, because I have it, every, like, to a small degree. So are there any hidden reasons we might be making bladder incontinence worse?
Absolutely. I'll go back to some of the simple things as lifestyle and diet and beverages that you're consuming. So, say you are only having incontinence with doing strenuous activity like jumping or running or coughing. So, that's called stress incontinence. So, your muscles aren't timing with when you do the work. That's a little bit different than urge incontinence, but they both can be affected by your diet and what you're consuming. So things like carbonated beverages, if you drink a lot of sparkling water, if you drink coffee, we think of that as a diuretic, alcohol, even anything with artificial sweeteners, citrus. Those are the common ones that can stimulate your bladder. So it basically tells your brain, hey, I gotta go. But if you cut those out like 2 hours before exercise, that can limit some of the stimulants and the feeling that you have to go, or even the leaking too. Or even if you're drinking a lot of water, like I usually say, if you're having that problem with stress incontinence, like stop 2 hours before you go for a run or before you do a hard workout. The other things could be if you tend to sit a lot and you're very sedentary, you probably have a lot of tightness around your hip area and your pelvic floor muscles. And so activity level is going to also trigger bladder problems too. And we see this a lot where you don't realize, but you could be clenching those muscles more than needed. If you're under a lot of emotional stress or physical stress, that will also trigger your bladder because your muscles are not able to function the right way. They're putting a lot of pressure against that area. And I would say those things sometimes you don't realize, or women that tend to like hover over the toilet, they don't sit all the way down on the toilet. I see this a lot in like having altered bladder habits when you're a nurse or you're a teacher and you have to go long periods of time sometimes without
Oh,
using the
yeah.
bathroom, so you're holding it for a long period of time and it's like your muscles get used to that, and then you go to do something more active and then you can't quite control it because your muscles aren't used to being able to go back and forth between relaxing and contracting because you're contracting too long during the day. So those are some of the common things that we see.
So what I'm hearing here is not to be rolling down the road with your grande Starbucks, all the sugar, all the caffeine, while doing Kegels at the stoplight right before your workout. Bad idea. Don't do it. Bad.
You just
But
summed it all up.
but I honestly I didn't know like some of the things that like caffeine citrus that kind of floored me.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those things and timing again goes back to know your body, learn your body. It's different than anyone else's. And it's not the end of the world. It's just figuring out how it fits in your life properly. Really, citrus flew me. I was like, what? Did she just say citrus? Wow, did not know.
Yeah,
Um,
I used to be somebody that had a smoothie, a cup of coffee, and my water in the morning. I mean, think about how my bladder was like overactive until
oh,
about 3 o'clock. And I will, with any of our clients that we see, we do a bladder log for our clients. So we have them for 24 hours, they're writing down how many times a day they're going, what if they're having to sit there for like how many seconds, so what the stream is like, and then what are they eating and drinking during the day. And that can tell us a lot on how to tweak some things. And it's not forever that you have to cut those out, but it's while we're helping improve their symptoms.
that's wild. I got to say that's
Mm-hmm.
wild, but now I'm fascinated. I want to go buy a log, like the little hardcover diary now, and I just want to log. I'm going to be obsessed with it just to be like, and there we go. That's what it was.
Yep.
Um, so prolapse, nobody wants to talk about prolapse. We joke around about prolapse. I say it all the time, like, oh, if I one more squat and my uterus is going to be on the ground. But what are the signs that you have a prolapse? Because I think that is something we don't have, we don't know. And what do you do about it without having surgery?
Yeah, so prolapse means that you have weakening in the vaginal area. And so you have, when estrogen levels drop and you start getting more of the atrophy around those muscles, um, the bladder, the uterus, the rectum, they can all, um, we think of it like slipping down a bit, but it's not actually protruding out of the body. It's putting pressure against the vaginal wall. And so in severe cases, we call this like a stage 4 prolapse. You can physically see something bulging out of the vaginal area or out of the rectal area, and it becomes uncomfortable, like pressure or heaviness
Mm.
down there. A stage 1 or stage 2, you may start feeling some of the symptoms or achiness or just feeling like something's not right down there. Those symptoms, there's a lot that you can do to ease your symptoms there. We're not going to necessarily reverse a prolapse, but it can be wildly beneficial to see a pelvic floor physical therapist to avoid surgery. We've had women before with a stage 2 prolapse, so not that bad, that the doctor right away said, you need surgery. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like go you need to try all the holistic things. So they're reading online what to do, and that's how they ended up finding us. But and their symptoms totally improved and they did not need surgery. I've also had women with a severe prolapse, stage 3, stage 4, that decided absolutely not, I'm not having surgery. So teach me everything that I can do to help it. And they've found success too with limiting their symptoms. There are multiple things that you can do. So number one, working with a pelvic floor physical therapist that's going to help work on your muscles, seeing if they're tense and how you can release them, or if they need to be working on strengthening exercises. Sometimes your hips are really weak too, and so it's like all those surrounding areas, and you think you're doing squats, you think you're doing deadlifts, but it's those muscles, how they're all supporting your pelvis, and we look at the big picture there. Then number 2 is possibly getting fitted for a pessary, which is a device that you insert through the vaginal area that if you want to be running, jumping, being more active, and you're having the symptoms, that basically like holds things in place better for you.
Oh, wow.
That can be fitted by some physical therapists or by doctors. We refer out for doctors for that. And then last piece, if you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, hormone replacement, doing bioidentical hormones, HRT, hugely helpful too. We find that women, the combination, especially for incontinence and prolapse, if they are not doing estrogen, and maybe there's a reason why they're not going to do it, they might make a little it might be a little more difficult to help them, but we can still help them. But we always do a combination approach. So we love to refer, I'm in Southern California, so there's lots of forward-thinking, holistic doctors, which is great. So we love to find those doctors to refer to so they can see if hormone replacement might be right for them, plus working with us. So the combination of those two, you're going to build up the vaginal wall atrophy and improve the strength there, and then also working on the right types of exercises and lifestyle changes to help you. So those things, the combination of them has been hugely successful for women with any prolapse symptoms to avoid surgery.
See, there's help out there. There's
Yeah.
it's not a acceptance anymore. There are things that you can do. You just have to seek them out from a qualified professional. I have one question while you were talking about prolapse, and it honestly just came to my head, and it may not play into this, but when you have a child, and do it vaginally, if you tear, does that have any correlation to affecting the pelvic floor, or is that more of an external thing and it does not?
It does have an effect in a way. So if you're tearing, think about that affecting like any area of a muscle in your body when you have a tear in that muscle. So it's going to affect the strength. It's going to affect pain. It can affect anything that's putting pressure on that area. And if it's pretty severe tear and you're taking longer to heal, or you develop any scar tissue, that will affect how the muscle functions. So when postpartum women come see us, like 6 to 8 weeks after having a baby, and maybe they had a pretty traumatic labor and delivery, I am always like, kudos to you. Like, you're taking care of yourself and you're being proactive, because you know this could turn into a bigger issue, and you want to heal. And it's so hard when you have a newborn baby at home to like take
Oh,
the
yeah.
time for yourself. But that's when it's super helpful. But I would say, like, there's women in their 50s, 60s, 70s that see us and they're like, I think this is related from my 3 C-sections I had 30 years ago. Or I think this is related from a really traumatic birth that I had, and I was starting to get these symptoms afterwards. So it could be years down the road that you are like ready and able and willing to do something about it, but it could be related to having any tearing during delivery too.
Well, thank you for that. That was a burning question that I've had. I had a um, 3.5. My middle child, it was rough. Didn't have never seen so much blood, but I luckily was working with a midwife who did suggest like you have to go outside of your doctor and you've got to take care of this or it's going to be exactly like you said. She talked more about scar tissue and things are just going to be a lot rougher if you
Mm-hmm.
don't take care of it. So I agree, and that's why I wanted to ask on that. Well, what haven't we covered that you would like to get out there to everyone? Is there anything that we haven't discussed that you think is important we know, or do you think we've covered the just skim the top in a good way?
You've covered a lot, which is great. I was asked some very. I think if women don't know about this at all, I hope this will open their eyes to be like, oh, I didn't realize that. So hopefully I was able to give you some new information about your body. But then also, if you are seeing a practitioner, or maybe you've mentioned some of this stuff and it's brushed off, or it's like, oh, that's, you're getting older, that's just what happens. Do not accept that as an answer. Be your own advocate. I think for so many of the women, there has been some crazy stories I have heard from advice they've been given by medical doctors or non-advice, or just feeling like they got lost in the shuffle, and that unfortunately happens in today's medical world. But seeking out to find your own advocate, and being your own advocate and doing your own research and seeing more than one doctor. If you were recommended to have surgery, definitely seek the advice of getting different opinions too from other doctors.
I totally support this. I think it's high time we we take care of our kids, we take care of our spouses or significant others. We really need to focus on ourselves. There's so much that women's bodies do. We're so beautiful and yet so complicated in every function that we have to perform. And I think, why are we not making sure? Well, if we don't take care of ourselves, everybody else is going to fall apart. So you might as well take
Exactly.
care of yourself. Two fun questions I always ask, and completely unrelated to the pelvic floor, but in your journey of becoming specialized in the pelvic floor and working with women and women's healthcare and the 952 things in your bio that you do, if you could put a cocktail, mocktail that represented, it could be water, it doesn't have to be alcohol, that represents your journey, what would it be?
Yeah, this is a fun question. I've never actually had this drink, but when I looked up what it's made of or how it is a gin martini. And
One
so
of my favorites.
I'm usually a tequila girl, but a gin martini, just being very clear and precise. I think that is helpful when you're seeing a practitioner, that they are going to explain things in detail, but then also having a lot of clarity and giving you that peace of mind, like you're going to be
I,
okay.
I I love that because it's transparent. It's a transparent drink. You know what you're getting. It's gonna be the same for the most part every time, and it's pretty adult. You could put it in the professional sense. I love that. Was not expecting that. I was expecting a Mai Tai or something like that. So my favorite so far. And
Oh,
then
thank you.
the KellFire Show, we have a playlist on Spotify, and I always ask a guest if you could put a theme song or a song that represents your journey wherever it is in your life that it resonates the most with. What song would that be?
Well, this is another fun question. I love that you asked these. Um, I'm gonna say "Don't Stop Believin'" by Journey, and
Such a good song. Are you my soul sister? I think you're my soul
maybe,
sister. I'm pretty sure. I'm putting it on the list right now. Okay,
yeah, it
why?
had to be a good song that I like too, because then I'm gonna go back and listen to your list. So I love that you do that.
You wait till this
Yeah,
list is it's crazy.
and I would say I think "Don't Stop Believing," meaning that I've been working with myself. My husband and I are business partners and working for ourselves for the last 9 years. There's so many ups and downs, but when you come behind it with like a meaning why you're doing it, then you can keep pushing forward no matter how many crazy things happen to you while you're in business.
Uh, I absolutely know that. And I love that that's your song. And I would also say that could go to your clients, your patients, because don't stop believing. Don't give up. Don't just resign to your position, pain, incontinence, all those things. Just don't stop believing. You got to push yourself, get out there, find the information you need, find the experts that can help you.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that being said, where can we find you in the interwebs?
My website is drdawnandalone.com. So Andalon is how you spell my last name. And my biggest platform is probably YouTube. That's where I spend a lot of time doing videos. Twice a week, I release videos all
Wow.
about these topics, what I'm talking about today. And I have a big following in Pilates, the Pilates world. So I do talk about my pelvic floor Pilates program on there, and then give a lot of sample exercises and things to help women. So that's just Dr. Dawn, Women's Health Expert on YouTube. You can look me up there, or on Instagram is my name as well.
I think we should have a pelvic floor health party where we all tune in virtually. We can all get together, watch one of your YouTubes while drinking martinis.
Yeah.
I know we're not supposed to be doing that before exercise or anything that will cause the bladder to get stimulated, but in this case, this is for knowledge reasons, and I feel it's highly appropriate. So we should have the women's health happy hour, and bring your martini if you like. Well, Dawn,
Yes.
thank you so much for coming on, because it is a touchy subject and it's one that we don't know nearly enough about and we don't do enough for, and we really should. So, again, thank you so much. Everybody go find Dawn. I'm now like, ooh, 2 times a week YouTube. I can learn about my pelvic floor. This is a deal right here. Um, so thank you for coming on, and thank everyone for listening to us. You can find us on this episode on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Apple, all the things. And tune in to next time. Thank you so much. Hey everyone, I just wanted to tell you guys about our supplement line. If you haven't already heard, I put a lot of time and effort into sourcing out what I think are the most important things for women's health in this transition in our lives. And we have Dr. KellFire's potions and elixirs. What we have first is a vegan vanilla protein powder. We also have, this is one of my favorites. It's prebiotic and probiotic. It's a greens powder. So you get your greens, you get your fruits, but you do really attack that gut health and balance that out. So I'm a big fan of Thrive. We also have apple cider gummies. If you've ever had apple cider vinegar, you know how harsh that is to take. So we have our gummies, and they are apple flavored, and they're really good. Supports metabolism. We have the lovely collagen and biotin combo in liquid, so it's awesome. You can put it in your drinks, you can put it in your teas, you can just shoot it in your mouth. I love tinctures, but collagen biotin for hair and nails, because that is extremely important at this time in our lives. 8-in-1 mushrooms, illumination. I love this product. It's 8 different nootropic mushrooms that supports immunity, anxiety, mental state, awareness, focus. This is my favorite baby. And then I probably shouldn't have said that, because this one is my favorite baby. This one is bovine glandular. So this is derived from bovine uterus. This is for hormone balance and libido support. This is a staple, and I think it should be a staple in every woman's wellness kit. All of our supplements you can get on mytempesta.com. Just hit the shop link and everything there. You can get it one time. You could sign up for a subscription with discounts, and they'll just come to your door. It will spark your wellness journey and ignite your fire.